By the way, I avoided calling myself a Christian. I said, I'm a believer in Jesus, but I'm not really, it's kind of different than, because for him, Christian means that I believe in the Trinity of God the Father and then Son Jesus, who God conceived by having sexual activity with Mary, who is the third member of the Trinity for most Muslims. So when I say Son of God, they're like, that's repulsive to them, what that suggests of God. I avoided those terms. Instead, used terminology that is totally accurate to what I believe, but that would resonate and make sense with him. There are bridges. We say, okay, that's Islam. Study Hinduism. Bridges, like you would not believe. Hindus are looking forward to the return of God. Kalki will come riding on a white horse, carrying a blazing sword. Say, well, that's Revelation. You say, well, no, that's our sources. Then Kalki will come at a time when people are evil, they've given up true faith, and if it wasn't for the protection of God, they would be destroyed. People will hide themselves in the mountains. There's language that sounds like, we're talking about Adventist eschatology here. No, this is Vishnu, the God of love, who comes, incarnates himself in these various forms. There's one final incarnation of Vishnu that they're waiting for in this great epic of history. Last one, and then we'll have our break. Buddhists. I'm skipping over all kinds of great stuff here. I want to tell you about Maitreya. So I'm teaching in Thailand here a couple, was it 2007 or whatever, for a couple months. Students from all over the place, mostly Asia, but there was Walid, who was from Iraq. I mentioned him before. Interesting, that kind of process of getting acquainted with him. And I'm talking about how do we refer to God when you go into a new place? What do you call him God? You say Jesus, or can you find a local equivalent, or his names? I don't know. There are names that are foreign names, right? That we would to my English ear, I would hear it and I'd say, oh yeah, that's kind of hard to say, or that's a foreign name. How are missionaries supposed to describe, or what name do they use to describe God when they come to a new area? We were discussing that in class. Afterwards, the guy comes up. He's a Khmer, which is the indigenous people of Cambodia, predominantly Khmer. And he says, when the missionaries came, he's Buddhist. Been in the pagoda, as he said, for 3 years, so he had some extensive education, not just the 1 year kind of SM experience that many Cambodia. He had 3 years of it. And he said, I think the missionaries made a terrible mistake when they came to Cambodia. He said they came and they talked about Jesus and God, but he said they used those terms. I think it was in French, some of the earliest quotes there. He said, and immediately everybody is curious to learn about this foreign God. He said, if you talk to my grandmother to this day, you talk about Christianity, well, what I believe, he's a Seventh-day Adventist. And he said, she'll say, oh, you're following the foreign God. He said, it's not. But, he said, the reason I became a Christian was when I first heard the story of Jesus. He said, I knew from the pagoda the Buddha prophesied that his religion would only last for a time. Afterward would come someone greater than he, who would establish a religion that would last forever. And these would be his sons. First of all, this new being's name would be Maitreya, which he explained to me means in Khmer, the being of supreme love, the head of love. He said, Maitreya means there's no being more loving than Maitreya. He would heal the sick, he would raise the dead, he would give sight to the blind, and there would be signs in his body. He said, this is what I learned in the pagoda. There would be signs in his body. There would be signs in both hands. There would be a sign, and he described to me what the sign means. He said, it's like and he says the word in Khmer, he says it's like this jagged thing, like something in the hand, in both hands. He said, mark across the forehead, a mark in his side. He said, and then something kind of, again, he's struggling to understand. He says, like something sort of flowing down over the feet. These would be the he said, I hear, first of all, the life of Jesus, and I'm thinking, well, that sounds like Maitreya, the things that Maitreya would do. And then he said, I hear about his crucifixion. Crown of thorns.
Maitreya was crucified.
No. He's heard about Maitreya and the signs that the Buddha said. This is how you'll know. And now he's hearing the story. He was like, that sounds like Maitreya.
When he comes, he'll have those marks.
Yes, that's what the Buddha taught. He's listening to the story of Jesus. Well, he heals the sick, gives sight to the blind, raises the dead. And then he says, I hear the story of crucifixion. The marks in his hands, crown of thorns across his, marked across his forehead, sword in his side. And he said, and you think of blood, the blood that would cover his feet would flow down over his feet. And he said, I think that's Maitreya. And so I asked him, he's studying theology at that point. He was a bright guy. So he goes on a little more. And he says, by the way, if when the missionaries had first come to Cambodia, they had listened long enough and then had said, we come to tell you the story of Maitreya who has come. He said, I think the history of my country, Cambodia, the killing fields, Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge, the whole thing. He said, I think the history of my entire nation would be very, very different. Bridges. Listen long enough. We say, oh, it's great, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism. Listen long enough to whatever group you're wanting to reach. Listen long enough so that you are able to declare Maitreya to them, the being of supreme love. I asked him, by the way, I said to this Adventist pastor, I said, do you believe that Jesus is Maitreya? You know his answer. He said, I do. I believe Jesus is Maitreya. Well, if we're going to talk about Maitreya as a being of supreme love, and no being has greater love than Maitreya, then I would say Maitreya is a decent name. Say something about it, Jesus. So now I've grossly oversimplified, right? Are there things about the Maitreya story that don't quite match? If you press a Buddhist that knows about this, and by the way, different cultures, I talked to my dad, who knowledge is in Thailand. He said, Maitreya, but in Thai there's a different name. It means Lord of the Three Mercies, which is itself a kind of interesting name. And I asked others. I asked a Buddhist in Portland, tell me about Maitreya. And she said, well, I don't know a lot, but my understanding is that Maitreya is the next Buddha that will come. And she was hoping that Maitreya would be a woman, by the way. She said, I think that would be really neat. And of course, she said, Buddhists say that's impossible, but she said, I'd like to think that maybe the next Buddha will be. So, and there's a certain time element as well. Some people say, well, the time element doesn't match with Maitreya. So what I've done, I've grossly oversimplified, but these are indeed, I think, bridges that with further study, exploration, wise missionaries, faithful evangelists and communicators of sozo should listen long enough to find the bridges. I don't think we have to build tons of them. Find the bridges and then walk the bridges. God bless you. I think our guest will be here shortly. Let's take our break.
That bridge building is probably just the time invested in sitting down in the interest of those stories where the bridges already are.
The bridge is to the people, to the
Opening
people.
that gate to the
That's
bridge.
right.
Discover the bridge.
Right, discover it, invest that time.
I'm trying in my own mind to stop using bridge, although it's great, bridge building, but trying conceptually to remind myself, I want to think that I have to sort of conjure up something and construct it myself. I think God has already placed it there. That's Peace Child, right? It is there. God has placed it there. Discover it. Walk it. Sure. So nothing basically about
I'm real curious about this Allah thing, and I don't like to quote Wiki too much, but you understand that in Malaysia it's illegal for anyone other than a Muslim to
this
say
is the
Allah.
thing. No, this is exactly the same thing happened with Maitreya. The Sokan, the Khmer guy, said subsequent missionaries caught on to this and began began to talk about Jesus as Maitreya. And he said, the Buddhist monks, the Buddhist authorities did not like that at all. And he said, went on national radio and said, don't listen to the missionaries if they're saying that Maitreya is the same as, there was a pushback.
Yeah.
Same thing now in some countries where Muslim authorities will make it illegal
Right.
or discourage the use. That doesn't change the reality that for millennia, Arabic-speaking Christians have used that exact term to refer to their God. So they can say Christians, you can't use it anymore. Well, they're welcome to do that.
And again, I go back to Semitic languages, and vowels are irrelevant.
Brahman,
Mm-hmm.
Abdurrahman, Brahman, Brahmin. So, I got a little fired up there. My apologies.
Oh, it's good.
Excited.
Fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
This is
What I was
nice.
looking forward to.
How long you been out here, Bruce?
I just walked up.
Moments? Okay.
How you guys been set?
You're right in. I actually kept them like 10 minutes. We're supposed to have a 10-minute break.
Actually focus
Started.
on
World religion.
Because I think it gives a
You're
great
welcome to-
foundation to.
You're not welcome. You're usher.
People that are, it's the.
Welcome. I don't know which is better to be usher or welcome, but
We've been going at it since early this morning,
They've-
huh?
they've been a faithful group for four hours every morning.
Wow.
Just
That's
stuck it out.
Parade,
So
parade,
we'll-
parade, parade.
If you want to grab a chair over there
That's great.
and kind of sit here with us, you're welcome to stand.
4 hour
But
classes. Yeah. My
Thank you.
daughter, she groans without her 4 hour classes.
it's too long. It's too long. I mean,
Yeah.
4 hours is too long.
5 units.
We need more time for this class.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing.
6-hour classes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to sit that long.
It's the homework that really takes you out. Just all the class time and then having to conduct life and homework and all that stuff all at the same time.
Thank you for the kind words last night about my son. And
Oh.
I know he was being a little bit loud and disruptive.
No.
He had been in the car seat for
He's a kid.
all day, and
Yeah.
my wife had just gotten here.
Yeah, he's a kid.
Thank you, sir.
They get off their schedule.
They do.
They only know one way to voice their discomfort. Yeah, I totally get it.
He sat there watching and enjoying for a good 20, 30 minutes, though.
Yeah.
And he was just, I was very impressed with how long his attention span was.
Very sweet.
Even with obviously an adult topic that, not the kind of thing that a little one's going to
Yeah.
be totally fascinated, but he was still watching.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a longer attention span than most adults. Ah, goodness. Boy, the weather out here is amazing. Southern California is like, I'll make a joke. It's like you can see the guy with the pitchfork standing on the corner. That's what the air is like, and the whole atmosphere. It's like acid.
And there's only 2 seasons.
Worse and worse. Really, it's really, and I got off the plane and just walking to my car, it was like you can taste the air here. It was like wonderful.
Sweetness to it.
Sweetness to it.
Even though it doesn't, it's like, where's it coming from?
The only time that's not the case is in the winter. The air will settle in this valley and be trapped by the ridges, and then about 20 miles out there, there's a paper mill on the river. And when the wind blows this way and the air is like that, it gets stagnant. It smells like rotten eggs. It's pretty bad.
Serious.
So that will change.
Just in the winter. And you'll also have potentially 3-4 weeks of no sunlight. It'll just be fog, just socked in, and
Makes for beautiful shots, though.
it does.
Yeah.
And freezing rain happens a lot here
Oh,
too.
really does it? Freezing rain's not nice.
But they don't get a lot of snow. This is one of the warmest spots in Washington,
Really?
east of the Cascades. The natives used to winter here and up in Wenatchee. They're both low points where the surrounding area is maybe 1,500 feet to 2,500 feet, and this about 700 to 800 feet.
That's lovely. I called my wife and I said, please, let's move up here. You know, the air. How are you?
Doing well.
Good. And the air just, it was like I'm breathing deep on purpose. It was kind of weird, without even thinking about it.
Yeah. It's good to find places where you can breathe deeply. I think too often, well, I know I just sometimes recognize like, oh man, I haven't been breathing right for a long time.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I mean, I grew up in Southern California. And did you really? Yeah. So you think
Up
I'd
to
be
8th grade.
used to it, but it's like you're standing in the sun and it's searing. It's kind of a different thing. It's like, is it getting worse or what's happening?
And then there's the heat of
I find myself wincing against the sun. It's kind of weird.
Northern California has its own heat.
Yeah.
Sacramento area. That's just,
Sacramento,
that's like
that's,
an oven.
that's pretty tough. Yeah.
I lived there for 15 years.
Yeah. That's got to be a pretty dense town.
We're in Southern California. You guys live.
I grew up in Orange County,
Mm.
and then I moved up into the San Fernando Valley and lived there for 25 years or something. And just 4 years ago, we moved back down to Orange County.
Where in Orange County did you grow up and where did
I
you
grew
live
up in
now?
the city of Orange.
Orange, okay.
Yeah. And now we're in Bahama.
Okay. I went K through 2nd grade living in Santa Ana,
Okay.
and then there was some major changes in my family life, and I found myself living in a barrio in Anaheim,
Wow.
right across the freeway from Disneyland. I
Yeah.
could see the Matterhorn out my window and watch the fireworks all summer.
Fun.
I was 8 years old, man. It was awesome. And then we moved to Tustin and lived next door to the last orange grove in Orange County.
Yeah, you cry on that.
Oh, wow.
We used to play in the orange
Yeah,
groves as kids.
we'd have orange
Yeah.
wars. We'd throw them at each other. They were Valencias, so it was small and hard, and they
Yeah.
hurt. And then I moved to San Diego for a couple of years, and then we moved back up to Manhattan Beach and then Redondo Beach.
Wow, you do that.
My dad was a computer consultant, and he joked about it. I don't think he did it serious, but he joked that we were Argentine.
Yeah. Moved a lot. Yeah.
I've moved 38 times in my life.
Wow.
Counted.
Yes. 39, sorry.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. You're taking your back seat there, the peanut gallery.
Yeah, I'm actually a surrogate student. I'm filming this for a student who's stuck in Lebanon for
Stuck in Lebanon.
yeah.
At least
Visa
he's got
problems.
good food. My mother is Syrian, so I know that food well. I wouldn't mind being stuck in Lebanon a little bit.
There's worse places to get
Yeah,
stuck.
there's worse places to get stuck. You know, there's big kebabs on every corner.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
You guys-
Real
I
rich.
didn't realize
I didn't realize
you give me a hard time in Orange.
Oh, yeah, no, we're thinking of your
So
future
early in
career
the
path.
90s, I've been thinking
Well, laid out for me.
2002, 2003.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the neatest things about that movie, is just its enduring service.
I
It's
used
just
it
this quiet, enduring service. It's pretty
I used it to share the gospel with people,
beautiful. That's what we made.
and it moved on me.
Beautiful.
So, here's kind of the setup. We have, you see some equipment here. There's a student that will be watching this. He's actually in Beirut, Lebanon. He'll be watching this sometime over the weekend, so it's being recorded for him.
Oh, okay. So he's not lying.
He's not live. He has been live, but this morning he's not live with us. And then is this also something that's going to the your YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Which
I'm
is
recording everything today.
because we have him. We're recording for our student Jose, who's probably listening right now. So Jose, and then another student of ours, Mark, who was there last evening with his daughter. If you remember, kind of towards the front. He's unable to be with us, so we're trying to preserve this for them. It will also be, right, Liam, YouTube.
Yeah.
Liam's YouTube channel email, which will not be open, but we'll send a link to
Right.
those here in the class that
Yeah,
that
these
watch
will
it.
be private videos. I'll probably have to send separate links for the different sections because we've had a couple Wi-Fi connection issues, but yeah.
So I just wanted you to know, I don't know all the laws associated with recording things,
Yeah,
but
well,
You
I'm a
keep in
union
mind-
actor, so you gotta talk to my agent.
I'm not sure what the fee is. But
It's high, I can promise you,
Yeah.
brother.
Can't afford it.
the idea is that it be accessible to this group. It's not something that's,
Yeah.
No, go for it.
they were
Have a
recording
ball.
me too, so don't feel too special. I was being recorded as well.
Should've gone in for hair and makeup.
Yeah. So we
Worn a different shirt.
typically go for about 50 minutes. That's sort of the idea, and then take a 10-minute break and then come back. So we have basically 2 sessions. We talked a little bit this morning, what should we talk about? And we didn't have a big agenda either.
Okay.
I think we'll ask questions. You're welcome to say whatever you'd like to say.
Great.
And I'll kind of be quiet. And
No,
ask
don't do
questions
that.
along the way. I'm not
Help me out.
planning on being like, fielding. You just take it away.
Great.
If you're all right with that.
Great.
You can ask us questions too if you want.
I guess, I don't know. I obviously don't have a notepad in front of me or anything like that. I'm always shooting from the hip. And, most of the time that works. But I guess maybe the place to start would be just give a little bit of background of what I've done. And, some of you guys are familiar with some of my films and my work and things like that, and some of you aren't. And so just kind of get everybody up to speed. And then I'm very interactive, so questions, they help me a lot, because I don't have a formula anything, okay? How far should I go back? It's kind of a funny thing. I started out as an actor, and I continue to make my living as an actor today. And like a lot of people, it all started when I was 13 years old. I was on stage in a small production of Oliver, I remember, and they gave me one line. And I remember every night, it just was like heaven to stand there and do that line. And I knew that, I could, like I had found what I would do and never get paid and be perfectly happy about it, so. But I think millions of people across the world say the exact same thing. The world of media and acting and directing and film, it's an odd kind of thing how people are attracted to it. It's unlike anything else. And the other thing about it is that everybody thinks they can do it. It's kind of an odd thing these days. Everybody thinks, I can be an actor. I can be a director. It's really interesting. And in a sense, they're right. But in the sense that it requires gifting and skills and craftsmanship, they're very, very wrong. Another, on that note, and this is a bit of a rabbit trail, I'm a bit of a news guy. I like to catch up on the news. So when I'm on airplanes, I'll read Time. I'll get Time and Newsweek and all the majors, and I'll sit there and I'll flip through them. And I remember reading a poll, and it was a few years ago when employment was down in the country and things. And they asked people, what their greatest dream job is, what their aspiration is. People across the country. And the remarkable statistic was that 75%, and I don't know who they polled, I don't know where they were or anything, 75% said that their dream job, quote, was to be a celebrity. Which I just found that remarkable. We're living in a day and age where everybody thinks they can be a celebrity. bizarre and absurd and unrealistic as that is, it's actually very true. I mean, all you have to do is do something terribly unsavory and make sure it's on YouTube and you're a celebrity in today's world. You'll get your 10 minutes of fame. But anyway, this whole world of cameras and media and everything, for some reason, it just draws people like moths to the flame, or moths to the light or something. So I was one of them at 13, standing on stage, and I did my one line. To this day, I can remember that line. What next is the question? That was my line. And I was sold on this profession. Interestingly enough, I entered college as a performing arts major, and I come from a very blue-collar family, so my parents sat me down, and they're going to set me right. And they said, you have to do something more practical and meaningful in your life. And so I ended up getting a degree in economics. And very few people know this about me, but I enjoyed the college life so much that I thought I just wanted to keep going to college. So I ended up, I'm going to get a graduate degree. What do I get my degree in? Well, I don't know, let's try this, let's try that. At the time, I was dating a girl whose dad was a lawyer. And it's actually very funny. I'll have some fun with it. He was a Jewish lawyer with a bad wig and a big cigar. It was a stereotype, And I remember him sitting there and going, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I go, I don't know. I go, why don't you go to law school? I don't want to be a lawyer. He goes, no. He goes, you graduate, you go to law school, you have something practical. Sounded good to me. I went to law school. Actually graduated, and I passed the California bar, and I actually practiced criminal defense for 2 years. Talk about a departure. and I hated it. I hated it for many, many reasons. I went into it very idealistic. I thought I was going to help poor people. But you find out it ain't that way. That's a whole other story for another day. I practiced criminal defense for 2 years. And then here's kind of a turning point moment. I was at the movies with a friend, and I can remember the movie. It was called Reds. It starred Warren Beatty. And I just had this habit. My wife will tell you, don't ever watch a movie with Bruce, because he'll just whisper in your ear through the whole movie. Oh, look at this, look at how they did that they're using a long lens on this shot and everything, and it just drives her crazy. And so there I was doing that in Reds. And a friend that I was with after the movie said, you've got really good ideas. You should be making movies. And it just kind of rebirthed the dream. You know what I mean? It was a turning point moment. I can remember the conversation. And it started my wheels turning, and so I decided, I'm going to do what I want to do. Don't recommend that to everybody. I thank God that my kids aren't interested in the film business. I really do. I thank God, because it's just a tough way to go. So that began me quitting my job as a lawyer. My parents were sorely disappointed. And it began 10 years of being a starving actor. I have no illusions about this business. Whether it's acting, directing, writing, I have no illusions. There's a billion people. You stand a better chance of being president or being a Major League Baseball player, than success in this business. Okay, that's the business. We're talking ministry here. I'll get to that. We're talking ministry here. Two very, very different things that people are always trying to pull together. And as Jesus said, quote, you cannot. In other words, it's impossible to serve both God and money. So we'll talk about that a little later. Just that separation. And it's a struggle. It's hard, because we all have families to feed and things like that. But it really is a point of friction. It's a difficult thing. So I just started pounding the streets as an actor, taking my classes, doing my thing, landing a few roles here and there. My first job, I remember, and here's a clash with the realities of the business. I hope these are interesting stories. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Right. I got hired to do one line on a show called Murder, She Wrote. I dream it come true. You know what I mean? And I remember I didn't sleep the night before, and it's like, you got one line, I practiced it a billion times, you know, and I show up on the set, my eyes are bloodshot, no sleep, and the makeup person makes one look at me and, you know, shakes, and I walk on the set, and I remember, you know, your days in this world always start before dawn, and I remember we shot my scene probably at 6:30 in the morning, and it's all so bigger than life and everything like that, and because it was only one line, I was done by about 7:15, and I was home by 8 o'clock, and it was just such a, you know what I mean? It was so anticlimactic. It was just a shock, you know, my big moment, but I got that paycheck, and that's one of the big lessons that takes many actors and many directors a long time to learn. At the end of the day, you got to make a living. At the end of the day, you got to feed your family. So anyway, many years of just being a starving actor. And this is, again, totally on the aside. Some of you were at the screening of Allison's Choice last night. When I was casting Allison's Choice, it was the first time I was on this side of the table looking at actors. And as I was watching the actors come in one at a time, I was so struck by a couple things. Number one, you know, I don't want to be mean, but it's like 99% of the actors who came through the door had no business in that business. They weren't gifted, they weren't, you know, hadn't honed their craft, they just were dreamers. And it's like you just, somebody somewhere told them, hey, you're pretty, you should go into movies. And it went to their head, and they showed up thinking they could do this thing. 99% of them had no business presenting themselves as actors. And of that 0.1% or whatever, you know, of that 1%, 99% of them could technically do the job. But then there was that 1% of that 1% that was like, wow, this person's gifted. This person, it's a gifting. It's very, very interesting. It's like I liken it to sports. You know, there's a lot of guys that can make the point, but then there's LeBron James. He's just gifted. You know, there's Curry. You know, he's just gifted. It's amazing. It's a whole different thing, and you can see it. It's a day and night difference. And at the end of the day, those are the people. And this would apply in terms of directing and writing and camera work and everything. I love taking photographs. It's kind of my hobby. I'm an amateur photographer, but I'm not gifted at it. You know, I'll see a scene in front of my eyes. I'll go, wow, you know, and I'll set it up and compose it. I'll take the picture and I'll look at it when I get home, and it's just like, what happened? But then, you know, I have friends who are cinematographers and everything, and they'll take a picture of that, and you go, wow. How do they do that? It's a gifting. It's a gifting. It's very, very interesting, kind of untouchable thing. You know, it's just like sports. So, that was a bit of a departure. Where was I before I went down that path? Oh, the acting thing. Yeah, the acting thing. So I struggled as an actor for many years. Started to get a little bit of success. Started to get auditions for really big things. I would consider myself I don't know that I'm gifted as an actor. I don't know. I would hesitate to say that I'm gifted. I think that I have, and I say this very humbly, I think there's a calling on my life, like a ministry calling on my life, to represent the heart of God, to convey that, the compassion and the care. I think I have a calling. Whether I'm a gifted actor, I would hesitate. I think I'm one of those guys who can technically do the job. And that's just based on many roles I've played over the years and watching myself compared to other guys and stuff like that. I mentioned this last time. I have no illusions about myself. Zero, absolutely zero. But anyway, I found myself as an actor auditioning for big things. I auditioned for a movie. This isn't very Christ-like. Some of you remember the movie Mobsters with Charlie Sheen and all these guys, Kiefer Sutherland. I remember screen testing to be one of those guys. And when you're screen testing for those kinds of things, it's like you're up to bat in the major leagues. You're swinging the bat, and you can tell I'm a baseball fan. And there's a line: as long as you're swinging, you're dangerous. As long as you're swinging the bat, you're dangerous. So I went through a period of swinging the bat. I'll tell you an interesting thing that happened. I didn't yet know the Lord in my heart. I didn't. I was going to church, as long as it didn't interrupt my Sunday softball games, or my Saturday softball games, or as long as it didn't interrupt my Wednesday night softball games. I was a church-going guy. I was raised, going to church. But I didn't really know the Lord in my heart. Didn't have a living relationship. But at the same time, and I'm sure this was a God-given thing. I know it was. God-given graces. I remember getting offered a series that was kind of a dirty show. They were launching, it was when they were launching cable networks, and some kind of off-color networks were starting to crop up. And I got offered a series to do a kind of an unsavory show. And I remember even the audition made me very uncomfortable. It just was very uncomfortable. And you got to understand, I'm a starving actor at the time. I got $5 in my pocket. And I got offered this show. And I looked at the scripts, and I would have to be in bed with girls, and it just was unsavory. And I didn't yet know the Lord, and I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do it. It's creepy. It's icky. It's dirty. I don't want to be in bed with strange girls. It just was weird to me. And I remember, and it was a big deal, because it was a risk to tell my agent, because she stands to make money. And I remember I went to her and I said, I just don't want to do this show. I think it's just dirty. It's ugly. I don't want to set that precedent for my career. So it's weird how the Lord just, even though I didn't have a relationship with Him at the time, He gave me this kind of, I don't know, just sense of,
A standard.
Yeah, it was weird. It was interesting. And even more, way back, I started working in restaurants when I was 14 years old, working class family. And I remember all the guys that worked at the restaurant, they all partied. They all smoked pot, and they were older than me. And I remember being a kid and looking at them, they were all like 19, 20 and everything, and thinking, they're all kind of, this sounds kind of mean, forgive me, but they're all kind of like, they're going nowhere in life. I was going to use the word losers, but I don't want to put that on anybody. But at my 14-year-old perspective, is like, these guys are going nowhere. They got no ambition. They have no vision for their lives. It's weird. As a 14-year-old, I picked up on that. And they all had one thing in common. All they did was party. When they weren't working, they partied. And I remember thinking, that's not for me. It's weird how the Lord gives you graces and a sense of the Lord protecting you, even though you're living life away from Him. And very, very. That's a whole interesting part of my life. I mean, I was no perfect angel, but yeah. Anyway, so then we're about 1989 now, and I'm starting to break through in my career. I remember getting a few small films and getting bigger roles. I remember one week in particular, I went from one television series to another, and it was just like I'm living the dream and having a ball, and my agents are happy and everything like that. And without going into the details, in a very short time, it all kind of crashed. My girlfriend at the time dumped me. The calls started coming, and my life kind of crashed. And I sat there suddenly with nothing. And I remember it hit me. I built my life on things that can be taken away. I built my life on insecure things, which is what everybody tends to build their life on. Success, fun, my girlfriend. I built my life on all these, what's the word, temporary, something like that. And that's when I turned my life to Jesus. That's when I got serious about the Lord. I just realized, I need the Lord. And I just started crying out to the Lord, and He revealed His participation in my life very quickly. And he made sure I knew He was very real and very interested in me, and suddenly I was off to those races. I got very serious about the Lord. Still very serious about my career. But suddenly I just was so hungry for God and for His Word and more of His Spirit, praying and praying and praying. I remember I would pray for hours. Just praying and just talking to Him. You know what I mean? And it was a hard time. I only had a couple bucks in my pocket. Can I tell a funny story? Is it interesting?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay, this is a funny story. I got no money. I had no money, and I had this big German Shepherd dog. And I had a neighbor, a woman who lived next door to me, and she could see that I had no money. So, one night she invited me over for dinner. She was a single woman. She was an older woman. Now that I look back, I have a funny feeling she had other ideas. But at the time, I didn't get it, Another way the Lord protected me. But she said, Bruce, I'm going to make lasagna. Will you come over for lasagna? Yeah, I'll come over for lasagna. I mean, I literally wasn't eating. I could tell you stories. I literally wasn't eating. I was making decisions between putting gas in my car and feeding my dog. I mean, I could tell some stories. I know what it's like to starve. And then secretly starve. Because I had quit being a lawyer. So I couldn't tell my parents. I couldn't tell them. You know what I mean? I had to carry this veneer of everything's okay. It was a tough time. And so I went over, I had the lasagna. She sent me home with a big chunk of lasagna. And I just couldn't, that I'm going to live on that on that piece I took home for like a week. So the next day I'm out running around and everything, and all day long, all I can think about is that lasagna that's waiting for me when I get home. And I came rushing home 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I pulled that baby out of the refrigerator. I stuck it in the microwave. I'm ready to go. And at that time, I lived in a one-room, it was a converted garage is what it was. They called them guest houses, but it was a converted garage. It was a way for people to get rent money, out of their garage. And I didn't have a table like this. I would sit on this sofa and, just eat on my lap, and the dog would be there. My dog was highly trained. He was a great dog. He was my constant companion. Well, I had trained him. He wouldn't beg, but if I put my plate on the floor, he knew it was his. That was his signal. This is yours. So he would sit on the other side of the room, and he would wait, and that was our routine. I would eat. I'd always leave him a little bit. I'd put it on the floor, and then he would walk over. So I'm just about to dive into that chunk of lasagna, man. I haven't eaten, and the phone rings. True story. I just let me answer that. Without thinking, I put the plate on the floor. And I answered, I'm just about to eat, I'll call you back in a minute. And I put the phone, turned around, gone. It was gone. I mean, it was just licked clean, and that dog just sat there and just looked on his face, and I'm ready to kill the dog. And then I realized he was just doing what I had trained him to do. So, that's the lighter side of starving, I guess. Great fun. That's a fun story. But I'd given my life to the Lord and was very, very serious with the Lord. Now, the next turn of my career, my father's Italian, my mother is Syrian, and they're both from the East Coast. And so I kind of, in those days, especially, my hair was darker and blah, blah, blah. I tended to be cast as kind of a mobster kind of tough guy, bad guy, kind of edgy guy kind of thing. That's how I sold myself. That's where I found work. And so I went through this dry spell as an actor. And I will never forget, probably a year and a half of just no work. And I was sitting at a gas station with a friend. You pump in your own gas, and I'm sitting there in the car. And, it's a scene out of a movie, the sweat pouring down your face because it's summer and your air conditioner doesn't work and all this kind of stuff. And I remember he said, maybe you ought to try this in your career, and that, and this and that. And I looked at him and I said, no, I think the Lord wants me to start playing good guys. I'll never forget that. My foot was hanging out the door of the car. I can picture it. And the next role I got was Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew.
Wow.
Which is what puts me here today. It was a pivotal moment. The next phone call I got was to audition for Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. I could cry at a moment like this. There's that scripture. I know the plans I have for you. Plans for your good, not for your harm. Plans for a future and a hope. And I am a living example of a guy who had no life, and the living God gave him an amazing life. Of a guy who had no purpose, and the living God just literally gave him purpose beyond comprehension. I could go on and on and on about that right there. And there's a whole other story about how I, the audition for Matthew and everything like that. But the next thing I knew, I had a beard and long hair, and I was in Morocco. I had only been out of state a couple of times. Suddenly I'm in Morocco. You know what I mean? Talk about the Lord giving you things just so far beyond what you can begin to imagine. And I'm in Morocco, and walking through the Gospel of Matthew and reenacting the most pivotal moments in universal history. It's like so far beyond what anyone could ever dream. You know what I mean? So far beyond my